What really happened behind closed doors before Naomi Judd's tragic end? For the first time ever, her husband is breaking his silence, and what he reveals is not what anyone expected. The truth is raw, emotional, and it changes everything we thought we knew about their final days together. This isn't just a tribute, it's a revelation. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear will leave you speechless. Of all the stories to emerge from Nashville, few carry the quiet heartbreak and unwavering devotion of Naomi Judd's life with Larry Strickland. For decades, Naomi lived in the spotlight, her voice filling arenas, and her name etched into the hearts of millions. But offstage, in the quiet spaces where no applause followed, there was Larry, her partner in love, in pain, and in silence. Now, for the first time, Larry is stepping forward, and what he reveals has stunned even longtime fans. His words don't just shed light on Naomi's final month, they cast long shadows. Their story wasn't built on tabloids or scandals. It grew out of late-night conversations in Nashville, where Naomi was still a struggling nurse raising 2 daughters on her own, and Larry was a gospel singer grounded in Southern tradition. Long before the platinum records and Grammy wins, there was something quietly magical about the way they fit together. Larry's calm, his steady voice and humility, drew Naomi in like a safe harbor. And in a town full of fleeting fame, their bond formed not with flash, but with depth. What made their connection extraordinary was its quiet durability. Naomi, with her untamed energy and deep emotional currents, found balance in Larry's firm presence. When they married in 1989, she was in the prime of her career, performing alongside her daughter Winona. But she wasn't just chasing charts, she was searching for something more lasting, more grounding. Larry was never drawn to the spotlight, and maybe that's what Naomi loved most. He didn't compete with the limelight, he simply stood beside her. Then came a diagnosis that changed everything. Hepatitis C forced Naomi into early retirement, just as her music career soared. While some may have distanced themselves, Larry stayed closer than ever. He became more than her husband. He became her caregiver, her advocate, and her anchor. Naomi often credited Larry's quiet strength as the reason she could face that chapter without falling apart. Together, they replaced the stage lights with garden light and stadiums with quiet walk. They weren't just lovers, they were allies. Naomi once called him a true Southern gentleman, someone who brought gentleness where others brought fire. And even when she opened up publicly about her mental health battles, Larry never stepped away. Through the darkest hours, he held space for her when words failed and the world seemed too loud. But even a bond that's strong can be tested by time, distance, and heartbreak. As their marriage endured, so did its complexity. Larry's years on the road, especially during his time singing backup for Elvis Presley, took their toll. Naomi battled feelings of abandonment and doubt, often left alone with more questions than answered. And in moments of deep hurt, cracks formed, ones neither of them would fully speak of for years. In a docuseries chronicling their family's life, a moment was revisited, one that Larry confirmed but wouldn't elaborate on. An incident that dramatized the emotional storm within their home. Naomi, a woman of fierce passion, had once acted out in despair over Larry's infidelity, and although he confirmed the moment occurred, his voice held restraint. "That's all I'm gonna say," he offered. The unspoken pain in that sentence echoed louder than anything he could have added. Still, they carried on. Years passed, the spotlight shifted, but the tension never fully vanished. In a candid 2022 interview, Larry revealed that for over a decade, he had been with Naomi almost every hour of every day. She relied on him deeply, and he tracked her needs carefully. Yet when he looks back, he wonders if he focused too much on the routine, and not enough on the soul behind it. "I wish I'd been softer," he admitted, the weight of hindsight thick in his voice. As Naomi's health, physical and emotional, deteriorated in her final months, Larry saw the changes. Their home grew chaotic. Naomi's spark faded despite therapy and treatment. But Larry didn't fully realize just how deep the pain ran. He did what he could, making sure she ate, took her medication, and kept her appointment. But now, he wonders whether what she needed most was simply to be heard. Despite everything, he stayed. He stood by her side at events, at home, through the quietest and most thunderous storms. When Naomi passed, just one day before she and Winona were to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Larry stepped up. His voice trembling, he accepted the honor on her behalf. She never met a stranger, he told the crowd, paying tribute not to her fame, but to her unmatched warmth. Then came a moment no one saw coming. Larry received a letter from a man who had sat next to Naomi on a long flight from Vienna to Nashville shortly before her passing. The stranger described her as mesmerizing, someone who captivated him with stories, humor, and kindness. Even in her final days, Naomi still gave herself fully in conversation, leaving lasting impressions on total strangers. Larry shared this memory, his voice thick with love, as if trying to hold on to the last pieces of her that hadn't yet slipped away. For months after her death, Larry remained silent, and maybe now we understand why. The pain was too fresh, the memories too raw. But when he finally spoke, at the CMT special named after Naomi's memoir River of Time, his words weren't just tribute, they were a confession. Of love, yes, but also of missed chances, misunderstood moments, and regrets only grief can fully awaken. Their love story wasn't perfect, but it was real. And in a world obsessed with fairy tales, maybe the most powerful ones are those that don't try to hide the flaws. They just keep showing up anyway. Now, as we prepare to journey into Naomi Judd's early life, we begin where all legacies start. Not in the glitz of the Grammy, but in the quiet shadows where dreams are first whispered. What shaped the woman behind the song? And what battles did she fight long before the world knew her name? Before the spotlight ever found her? Before she became half of the iconic duo that would shape the sound of country music for decades? Naomi Judd was simply Diana Ellen Judd, a small-town girl from Ashland, Kentucky. It was a place where the air was thick with the scent of tobacco barns, and the echo of gospel tunes floated from church windows and front porches. Life here was unvarnished and demanding, stitched together by struggle and tradition. There was no red carpet in sight, only dirt roads and hard truth. Born in 1946, the oldest of 4 kids, Naomi came from a family that knew how to stretch a dollar. Her dad manned a local gas station, while her mother worked long hours cooking to help keep the lights on. Their modest home wasn't rich in material things, but it was steeped in resilience, the kind of grit you don't inherit, but earn. From the beginning, Naomi had a different rhythm. She was sharp, inquisitive, and already nudging at boundaries others hadn't dared to question. But childhood didn't protect her from pain. When Naomi was just 18, her younger brother Brian passed from leukemia, a wound that cut deep and never truly healed. That single moment etched a lasting mark on her spirit, turning innocence into insight. She never forgot how fragile life could be, and perhaps that's why, even amid the gray weight of grief and poverty, she clung to music. It was the one thing that made the world feel less brutal. Inside their little home, the piano was more than just furniture. It was her mother's instrument of hope, and Naomi drank in every hymn like a lifeline. She was still a teenager when life handed her its next storm, a pregnancy at 17, and a future that no longer followed the town's expected storyline. Instead of folding, she fought, raising her daughter Winona alone when the father vanished without a trace. This wasn't just survival, it was the beginning of a legacy. With a baby on her hip and no roadmap in hand, Naomi packed up and left Kentucky, heading west to California in search of something better. What she found instead were night shifts, cramped apartments, and dreams that refused to die. She juggled jobs and nursing school, scrubbing away the exhaustion each night with the thought that someday all of this might mean something. And quietly, something was taking root. Her voice, weathered by hardship but rich with promise, started to rise. It wasn't long before Winona began singing too, her voice hauntingly similar to her mother's. Together, they didn't just harmonize musically, they created an emotional frequency that felt like home to millions. Their bond wasn't polished or rehearsed. It was raw, born from struggle, and drenched in authenticity. And that's what made them unforgettable. The Judds didn't just appear. They arrived carrying years of heartache, hope, and harmony. But Naomi's story wasn't just about the spotlight. It was about transformation. After giving birth to her second daughter, Ashley, and walking away from a marriage that no longer held meaning, Naomi reshaped her life again. She changed her name, trading Diana for Naomi, as a nod to the biblical figure who, like her, had to raise 2 daughters on her own after being left behind. This act of reclaiming her identity marked the beginning of a new chapter. The magic truly began when Naomi and Wynonna started singing together casually in their California home. What began as mother-daughter bonding quickly turned into something much larger, a musical movement that would sweep the country. In 1983, a demo tape landed in the hands of RCA Records, and suddenly, the world was listening. What they heard was more than melody. It was survival wrapped in song. From that moment, the Judds soared. 20 top 10 hits, 15 number 1 singles, 8 consecutive years sweeping major country music awards. It wasn't just success, it was history in the making. Their harmonies weren't just sonically perfect, they were emotionally resonant, echoing the journeys of countless mothers and daughters across America. In a world full of polished acts, the Judds were proof that real stories still matter. Naomi's songwriting was deeply personal, often drawing on the rough patches she'd endured. Love Can Build a Bridge, which earned her a Grammy, became an anthem of healing. But just as the duo reached their peak, life threw another curve. Naomi was diagnosed with hepatitis C in 1991, a revelation that changed everything. She stepped away from performing, but not from purpose. Her farewell concert made cable TV history, and rather than disappear, she used her platform to educate, founding a research fund and becoming the face of awareness for hepatitis C. Though her time on stage slowed, Naomi never stopped evolving. She made television appearances, authored self-help books, and lent her wisdom to shows like Star Search and Can You Duet, always reinventing, always giving back. When the Judds reunited in 2000 for a nationwide tour, over 300,000 fans showed up to hear the songs that had become part of their lives. It was clear, Naomi's story wasn't one of fleeting fame. It was endurance, carved out of adversity. In her later years, Naomi became more than a country icon. She became a storyteller, a mentor, a symbol of grace under pressure. Her life was a tapestry of challenges met head-on, of dreams kept alive through sheer will. And just when the world thought they'd seen all she had to offer, Naomi shifted her focus once more, stepping into the world of acting. That next chapter? It's one you'll want to hear. Because once again, Naomi Judd refused to be boxed in. She was once just a nurse in a small-town hospital tending to the sick and the weary. But within a blink, Naomi Judd transformed into a country music powerhouse whose voice echoed across decades. Her songs like Mama He's Crazy and Why Not Me didn't just top chart, they told stories, carved memories, and built a legacy. But with every standing ovation came a shadow she couldn't shake. And while fans saw only the spotlight's golden glow, behind it, Naomi was silently unraveling. Fame gave her everything, except peace. The transformation from healing patients to dazzling fans may have looked like a fairy tale, but it masked a reality that was far more complex. Every tour, every stage, every camera lens amplified her internal pressure. Behind her graceful poise was a woman wrestling with relentless expectations. And then, just as her stardom with daughter Wynonna hit a fever pitch, her body began to send quiet warnings, early signs that not all was well. The adoration of millions couldn't silence the whisper of illness creeping into her life. At the height of her success, Naomi was handed a crushing diagnosis, hepatitis C, a condition she contracted years earlier during her time as a nurse. Doctors told her she had just 3 years left to live. It was a moment that shattered her world and forced her to make an unthinkable choice, step back from music, to fight for her life. She plunged into treatment with the same resolve that once built her career, turning to both modern and alternative medicine in a desperate bid to reclaim her future. The journey was brutal, uncertain, and deeply isolating, but she refused to surrender. And as the physical toll mounted, another silent storm brewed, one that couldn't be cured by medication. Her mental health began to deteriorate rapidly. In later interviews, Naomi would bravely describe the despair that consumed her. The world knew her as a radiant star. She, however, was trying to survive one dark day at a time. But amid the pain, there were flickers of light, her daughter's triumph, her fans' unwavering love, and a growing sense of purpose beyond the stage. These things anchored her, as she weathered the storm. By 1998, Naomi declared herself free of hepatitis C, stunning the world and inspiring thousands. But the battle left its mark. She leaned into advocacy with renewed purpose, sharing her journey publicly to raise awareness and fight the stigma surrounding illness. She didn't just want to survive, she wanted others to believe they could too. Still, the scars of the past lingered, and the depression that haunted her never fully released its grip. She became a symbol of courage, speaking openly about her mental health in an industry still learning to accept vulnerability. Then came the comeback announcement. A reunion tour with Winona, set for fall 2022. The world cheered. Felt like the triumphant chapter Naomi always deserved. But just weeks later, everything changed. On April 30th, 2022, Naomi passed away, leaving her fans and family reeling. The timing was cruel. Just one day before her induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Winona and Ashley stood in her place, hearts shattered, voices trembling, accepting the honor that Naomi had earned through decades of pain and brilliance. Heartbreak deepened as details emerged about her final moments. She had planned her memorial, written instructions, even left a note, one that reflected the tangled emotions and pain she carried to the end. A note that cruelly misjudged her daughter's love. And yet, Winona came. She stood at her mother's funeral, grieving not just the woman who raised her, but the complexity of everything left unsaid. The public tribute, a river of time, aired live, filled with song, memory, and aching reverence for a woman whose voice shaped generations. Naomi had laid out her will years earlier, appointing husband Larry Strickland as the executor. At first, the media speculated about conflict, but Winona swiftly silenced those rumors. She and Ashley were united. "We're not fighting over anything," she said. "We've got great lives." That unity, in the face of so much pain, was a testament to the Judd family bond, a connection often tested, but never truly broken. Naomi Judd's financial journey mirrors the roller coaster of her life. With a net worth once estimated around $25 million, she invested wisely. She owned luxury cars, including a Rolls-Royce Phantom and Cadillac Escalade, and her prized watches included a Cartier Ballon Bleu. Her real estate portfolio featured a stunning 1,000-acre farm estate in Leiper's Fork, Tennessee. She didn't fly private often. She occasionally chartered jets for tours. Naomi held multiple insurance policies for health, income protection, and legacy planning. She also dabbled in entrepreneurial ventures, co-authoring books, and launching wellness products inspired by her healing journey. The story is a masterclass in how to protect and expand wealth, even amid deep personal struggles. But even wealth couldn't shield her from the echoes of her past. In her final interviews, Naomi revisited the trauma she'd long kept buried. Old wounds that resurfaced during the Judds' last encore tour in 2012. Confessed to thoughts she never acted on, simply because she didn't want anyone, especially her family, to find her in that state. Her condition was labeled treatment-resistant depression. She had tried nearly everything, and through it all, her message was clear. If I can survive, so can you. The world remembers Naomi for her hits and heartbreaks, but her true legacy is something more. She broke the silence. She faced her darkest truths and turned them into conversations that could save lives. She showed that strength isn't about perfection. It's about honesty, about saying, "I'm not okay," and still moving forward. Her daughters continue that work, transforming grief into purpose, loss into legacy. Naomi's name now lives on in advocacy, research, and every note sung in her memory. Hospital rooms to sold-out arenas, Naomi Judd's journey was anything but ordinary. It was raw, real, and deeply human. A life marked not only by fame, but by the fierce fight to find peace. And that's what we'll remember. Her music, her voice, her bravery. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more untold stories. And if you're still with us, there's another story waiting. Click now to discover the next chapter.